You all heard that, I think, so we're recording in progress, just so you're aware. Welcome, everyone. I'm thrilled that you're joining us today. This is the second session of our Cross-Border Perspectives series, which is presented by the Women's Enterprise Organizations of Canada and supported by the U.S. Department of State. My name is Lindsay Stewart-Glore. I am from WEOC, and I will be moderating today's panel, just sort of letting people in here as we go. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that where WEOC's head offices are and where I am today is on Treaty 1 territory, which is the original lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, the Oji Cree, the Dakota, and the Dene peoples, as well as the homeland of the Métis Nation. And I acknowledge that we source our water from the Shoal Lake 40 First Nation. So today, what we're going to do is have a pretty flowing conversation. We have four really amazing panelists here. We have Logan Wick, Kailey Gilchrist, Dr. Sarah Skidmore, and Sabrina Kent. That's how I'm seeing you on my screen. And we welcome you to add anything to our chat, any comments, any questions, and we will try to get to them. We have put in a number of links so you can connect with our panelists. You can find out where they're coming from. You can connect to some of our organizations. We have some time at the end to ask questions as well, if you put them in the chat. And I think that's it. So what I'd love to start with today is have our panelists introduce themselves and tell you where they are in the world and a little bit about themselves. And we're going to start off with Sabrina.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are. My name is Sabrina Kent. I use she, her pronouns. I'm coming to you live from Colorado or Cheyenne and Arapaho land. I'm the Executive Vice President of Programs and External Affairs at the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce. We are the sole certifying body for businesses that are majority owned, operated, and controlled by an LGBTQ person or persons here in the US. We also have an NGLCC global division that now covers over 30 countries and 25 LGBTQ affiliate chambers of commerce, including CGLCC in Canada, who you'll hear from later today. I'm also a dual citizen of the US and Canada. I was born in Ottawa, so I'm really excited to be a part of today's conversation with my distinguished colleagues. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, Sabrina. Welcome. And next up is Sarah.
All right, I am Dr. Sarah Skidmore. I'm the CEO of Skidmore Consulting, and I'm really excited for this conversation. Right now, I am in Florida. If I look out the window of this conference room, I can see the beach. So I'm enjoying this warm weather. It's one of the 2 months of the year I like to live in Florida. Otherwise, it's way. My wife is Canadian, and so I have Canadian ties, and that's exciting, as well as we serve some Canadian clients as well. So I'm really happy to be here and part of this conversation. My firm provides leadership training and business consulting. So think about strategic planning, DEI consulting, change management, really focused on moving organizations from their pain point to a point of strength. And so I'm excited to be here. And yeah, looking forward to the conversation.
Okay, next, Logan.
Hi, everyone. My name is Logan Wick. My pronouns are he, him. My company is Outbranding Promos. We can put your logo on anything, and we give over 20% of our profits back to charity. We're a trifecta of certifications, so MBE, LGBTBE, as well as DOBE, and we'll get into that more later. I have a unique lens. I transitioned at the age of 38. So having lived for 38 years as a woman, I have a superpower that allows me to see opportunities to be more inclusive where others might, or, you know, we sometimes take it for granted if you're born cisgender and that's been your gender your whole life. So that's what I'm bringing to the conversation, is that unique lens, and try to help out however I can other fellow business owners to grow your business as big as you want to be. So happy to be here and be part of the conversation.
Awesome, thanks, Logan. And then last but not least is Keeley Gilchrist.
Hello, everybody. I'm Kailey, she, her. I am CEO and sauce boss of Nona Vegan. I'm here in Toronto, where it is not a beach outside. It's construction covered in snow. So jealous. I make a line of plant-based, gluten-free sauces, and I sell them to retailers across Canada, like Whole Foods. And we're just starting our US brick and mortar launch now. So I'm super excited to meet you all and have this conversation. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. I've been really looking forward to this conversation for a long time. I'm super happy to get started. So the first thing that we wanted to talk about was the idea of supplier diversity, which is really what was sort of this whole series was born out of, was this idea of supplier diversity and the Canadians wanting to export into the US market, some of the challenges or barriers they might face, but also just having an understanding of people from their community and how they're navigating entrepreneurship and navigating that system. And so the question I wanted to start out with is it necessary? Do we need to have supplier diversity programming? I don't know who'd like to jump in there.
Maybe I can start, since supplier diversity is what I do every day. I would love to say that we live in a world where supplier diversity isn't necessary right now, but unfortunately, that's the ideal world and not the world we live in, right? As long as people are not being included in opportunities and having an equitable seat at the table to bid on contracts and expand their enterprises, and as long as the majority of contracts are going to straight cisgender white men, I do believe that supplier diversity is incredibly necessary, especially when we're talking about the diverse array of businesses that can enhance supply chains, enhance procurement efforts, and that honestly provide innovative, quality, and competitive solutions to companies and to government entities as well. So from my perspective, supplier diversity is absolutely necessary. I think from a corporate perspective, especially here in the US and now even more so in Canada, particularly with multinationals as well, you'll see that supplier diversity is an imperative in the procurement process and is a necessary step to their overall supply chain inclusion efforts.
I'll jump in here. I absolutely agree with everything that Sabrina said. And as a small business owner and having really grown my business through leveraging certifications is absolutely necessary. In terms of creating equity, it's a big leg up. Now, to be clear, certifications does not mean you're going to land business. It's not a PO. It is not a blank check. You have to still show up, network, and offer your services and be really great at what you do. So those things being said, when you're leveraging your certification, you're saying, hey, I've done these things. I'm showing that we are, in fact, truly diverse, and here's what we're committing to. So it's also, some of them are actually explicitly like, you're going to be hiring and making sure that you're doing diverse hires, and that in your own supply chain and your purchasing, you're going to be diverse as well. So don't, also remember, wherever you're spending your money, it's a vote in essence of like what you stand for as well. So make sure you're spending money diversely as well. But as far as being equitable, it's because when like minds have a tendency to think like minds, if there's a lot of cisgender white men in a room and they look around and like, oh, who are we going to use? Like, again, my business is swag. So anything you want to put your logo on, think, t-shirts, hats, mugs, that sort of thing, gifts. If they're all in the room, they look around and then they're like, oh, we know Joe or whatever. Most of the people that they're going to know look like them and are like them, as in, cis white males. So being diverse and then having goals and actually going out and doing that and sourcing, so that one, you're getting more creative ideas from women-owned businesses, LGBT minorities, that helps the corporation, but also it helps us get a seat at the table where we might not have been there otherwise. And so it's really important. It's a introduction. It's an door opening to be able to walk through and say, hi, here we are. Here's our ideas. We want to work with you.
If I could just jump in on that, Logan, absolutely. Certification is the starting line and not the finish line. I think the other point about certification, and Dr. Sarah, I think, can speak to this as well from an NGLCC perspective, is also the education that you get by being a supplier through a certified supplier through our respective organizations. Educational opportunities, networking, like Logan mentioned. There's so much more to certification than just the contract. Of course, the contract is the big goal and the ultimate goal, but it's how you're leveraging that certification and the access to the network that really helps you expand and grow your enterprise.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. I appreciate that, because when my firm first got certified with the NGLCC, it was just sort of drinking out of the fire hose, right? I didn't know much myself about certifications. I knew that I was in the LGBT community, so I qualified and I went through that process. But after I received that email of, hey, here you go, congratulations, that's where it sort of opened up, right? There were so many opportunities. My firm is certified through a variety of organizations, which we can touch on more in depth later. But with the NGLCC specifically, so many education opportunities, as Sabrina mentioned. So it's about really signing up to receive those emails, right? It's about checking the event calendar, registering to attend events. Right now, a lot of stuff is virtual. So show up to the virtual, meetings, show up to those, connect with people in the chat, listen to what people are sharing in the sessions. And if you have a solution that can help them, reach out to them. I will tell you that our investment in the certification paid off within the first 4 months of being a member, because of doing that, because of being present in those meetings, dedicating the time, connecting and networking. And another thing I'll say about supplier diversity is, a lot of times a supplier diversity program is a first step or an initial step that an organization may have with their DEI programming initiative, whatever it may be. And earlier, I know that we're in 2022 now, but earlier in 2021, there was actually an ISO standard around DEI that was released by one of my colleagues and also another NGLCC member, James Felton Keith. His firm, the Inclusion Score, made that into an assessment. And that's actually one of the tools that my firm uses when we do DEI consulting work with others. So this is just one illustration of it's about a network now, right? Now my firm is certified. We work with another certified firm to provide services to other individuals. So there's really a lot of opportunity, and getting that certification is just the first step.
Totally. I totally agree. And I'll speak to the Canadian side for any Canadian business owners on the call. The CGLCC, Canadian Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce, our certification is recognized by the NGLCC. Thank you very much. And it's totally changed my business world because before, it was never something I would consider bringing up in a meeting, like, hey, I'm queer. It was actually always something I sort of awkwardly dodged when the, usually white cis male older men would be like, hey, do you have a husband who's rich? It was always just an awkward thing I had to dodge. And now I'm like, no, I'm a certified diverse supplier. And like, well, let me tell you more. So it opens doors. It gets, I've done RFP processes, requests for proposal, and you actually get like extra points on your RFP if you have a certification. It's amazing. And so it can get you those initial calls or meetings. And then like Logan and everybody said, you have to then be good at what you do. You have to then show up with a good product or service. It's not a total shoe-in, but it does kind of disrupt the good old boys club, whatever it's called. It kind of disrupts that, which I think is fantastic. And it's so much more than that. It's also the community, and then diversifying your own supply chain within your own business. Like, we also got Rainbow registered, so we're committed to that. And through the CGLCC and networking, like you were saying, Dr. Sarah, it's like, I always say, you get out of anything in life what you put into it. And I put so much love and focus and attention into the CGLCC, and I get it back tenfold. So yeah, supplier diversity, very important in my personal opinion.
So I wonder, and we're just going to zoom right into like focusing a bit more, I think, on certification, because that's where this conversation is going, and it's so interesting to me. And I wonder, at what point in your business, and Sabrina, at what point would you recommend it, where people start looking at that? Is it when you're starting out? I think we have a lot of advisors on who work with entrepreneurs on the line, and I think one of the things that happens is you're trying to understand, well, what point is this the right time to go for that? Because there is work involved, there's time involved. Time is an ever shrinking thing at the moment, for everybody. So when's the right time to embrace certification? Go out.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. The answer is it's not a one size fits all approach, and it depends on what your goals are as an entrepreneur. If you are a B2B oriented business, kind of like Dr. Sarah, then I would say get your foot in the door as soon as you can and start forging those connections with like-minded business owners that want to do business with other LGBTQ or diverse-owned enterprises. If you are a well-established business and your primary goal is corporate contracting, I would say get in the door and get certified, make that happen. I would also say if you just started your enterprise yesterday and you're not sure if you're going to be B2B, B2C, or both, or direct to consumer, maybe get certified and start taking advantage of the educational opportunities and start expanding that network. Join our mentorship programs. You get paired with corporate and Platinum Circle mentors. Platinum Circle are businesses that range from 4 million to $750 million in annual revenues. And so you can get paired in that program for a year and start expanding your network, learning how to grow your company. So I guess the best answer that I could give you is it's not a one size fits all approach. It depends really on what your goals are. But I would also say certification is not for every kind of business either, right? Like if you are a standalone restaurant in a given city, you might not be the best candidate for a certification. You might want to be counted, which is incredibly important. And I'm like, yes, please count yourself. We need more data on the LGBTQ community, particularly the LGBTQ business community. But you might consider joining your local LGBTQ affiliate chamber of commerce. Here in the US, we've got 53 local affiliates across the country. And so as a standalone restaurant, you might not be out there for the large corporate contract or that B2B networking, but you might want to join your local chamber to say, hey, this is what I stand for. Come buy food here from my restaurant. But on the other side of the coin, you might have corporate headquarters in that city or state that you live in, and that you might want that corporation to be able to count their spend with you when they're catering their large meetings. So it really, there's not a one size fits all answer, and I'm sorry to be so vague, but it really just depends on where you are in your journey and what you're seeking to gain from being a certified supplier.
And I'm going to jump in on that. I would say as a small business owner, as soon as you can afford it, that's what it comes down to. So like for NGLCC, if you, and correct me if I'm sure you will, Sabrina, correct me if I'm wrong, but you join the local chamber, and part of your membership, you can go through the certification process, and there's not an additional fee. Yes, you have to fill out the paperwork, but that is part of your membership as being an affiliate at the affiliates for NGLCC. So like I'm headquartered in Austin, Texas, so part of the Austin LGBT chamber there, and get certified through having membership that way. For minorities, so MBE, which is now we're in alphabet soup, National Minority Supplier Diversity Council, NMSDC. They're the certifying body. That one I think is like $500 or $600, and then the women-owned, so WBE. Again, these are U.S. numbers, so I'm not sure about Canada. I think it's about $500 or $600 as well to get certified. So as soon as you can afford it, and to be clear, that means affording also the time and to go do the networking. So, and making sure that you can carve that out, because again, just getting a certification won't really actually get you anything. It's like turning your cell phone on, but not knowing anybody that has a phone. So you have to go somewhere to be able to network, to leverage the certification. So as soon as you can afford it, I would say minimum, have the budget for that, but also a couple $1,000s probably also for travel. Well, when we get back to regular travel, for traveling and being able to show up in person when you can. Right now, it's actually a good time if you have a smaller budget to go ahead and get certified and participate networking virtually and doing all the things that Dr. Sarah said and Kelly. So I would do that. Think of it like this. So when I got certified, I didn't actually know about certifications until much later, and I would have done it immediately had I had the opportunity to go back and do that. So we've been in business since 2007, got certified in 2013, and it has made huge, massive increases for us. The biggest one last year was we landed Facebook, which is now Meta. So we are certified, or we are approved at the highest level within Meta to do the biggest order. So that's been massive. But think of that as like an avocado tree. Avocado trees take a long time. You have to plant, water, nurture them, and in 3 to 5 years, then they'll start producing fruit. So what you do is you start networking and you're thinking about that for the bigger contracts, the bigger dollars. But tomato plants, those only take 6 weeks to bear fruit. So when getting certified and you're networking with other business owners, those are the tomato plants, right? How can you be of service to them? What can you collaborate on? Well, you can do that at any point, but what services can you offer to them? How can you help each other in business from that standpoint? That's where the fastest business you will see will come from other business owners who are like, oh, hey, yeah, I did need to create a program. Dr. Sarah, please help me create this program, and I need to learn more about ISO and all these kinds of things. And that way you're getting more immediate revenue, and then you're working towards nurturing those avocado trees for bigger dollars later.
Yeah, and I totally support, what you just said there, Logan. That's exactly what my business did, right? So I started the business in 2019 officially, right, with all the government documents and all that good stuff. And then I didn't learn about the NGLCC until 20, so I guess it was like 1 year later. But it totally is something that if I would have known about it in 2019, I would have done it in 2019. And a lot of the first year growth of being part of the NGLCC was, again, with those tomato plant examples, with supporting other small businesses, certified businesses, delivering amazing services so that we get awesome reviews, awesome testimonials, right? That we can then use as we're going after corporate contracts. And I say, right, in 2021, we've gotten a variety of corporate and Fortune 500 contracts for leadership training and business consulting. And it's because of that work, right, where we're supporting clients at all levels, providing the services that we do well, right, to meet their needs. And so I definitely love that analogy. I'm a big visual person, so that was a good one there. Another thing I will add too is that we did get certified with NGLCC first. And again, later I learned, I can get women-owned certified, right? And then later I learned that I qualify to get disability certified through Disability In, right? And so it's not that I necessarily knew all this information or that it like came upon me one night, right? It was through networking and through working with other folks that they were like, oh yeah, I'm WeBank certified, women-owned certified in the US. You should get that too. And I'm like, oh, let me look into that. And another example is my firm works with diversity masterminds, right? Liz and Heather from Diversity Masterminds, they're certified in the US. And Heather was actually the one that told me about Disability In certification, right? So then I was able to achieve that and get that and whatnot. So now not only do I have the NGLCC community to participate in, I have the WeBank community, the women-owned community, I have the Disability In community, and all of these opportunities to network with people that I will say I have not had the opportunity to do before. Before I joined the NGLC, I individually had never been in an environment with the the sheer number of people that are within the LGBT community, let alone our allies, everyone affirming, right? It's so great to be in that community, even if for nothing else. And same is true with the WeBank community, women owned, and then disability community. I never been in communities where you're just surrounded by people that have possibly had similar life experiences or possibly had, situations that you can go to and almost be a peer mentor and say, hey, this happened, this was not fun, right? Or this amazing thing happened, and you have to sort of celebrate and affirm what you're doing in that way as well.
Dr.
Oh, sorry, no, go ahead.
I was just going to add a quick anecdote, which is I'm glad you say that, because we oftentimes say about our organizations that we're the best kept secrets to diverse business owners. My mom was a senior PM in IT, and she had her own consulting company. Canadians on the line can thank her for being a part of the team that implemented GST. But I will say that she says, where was this when I was coming up as an entrepreneur and leaving traditional corporate employment and establishing my own consulting firm? Like, I wish I had known that certification existed for me as a woman, and an Indian woman at that as well. So I'm glad that you point that out, because there isn't just like a one size fits all approach. Like, here's the handbook, read it, go ahead and check the box, and now you're certified in these different capacities. It's really something that a lot of entrepreneurs have to discover themselves. So I'm glad you pointed it out.
Yeah, which is so great that we're having this conversation. Thank you for facilitating this, Weok, so that we can be spreading the word. Like, as anytime somebody's like, supplier I'm like, hi, let me tell you all about supplier diversity. I just like can't wait to talk about it. And as to like when you should do it, as everybody said, I won't make this long because I just agree, as soon as you can afford it financially and time wise. That was a really good point, Logan, because you have to put something in, because otherwise it just sits. I mean, if you've got a really good person on your team advocating for you, but anyway, you have to put in the energy and the time as well. But the CGLCC also has a mentorship program, which I participated in, and it's fantastic. So you can do a year of learning and growing and being mentored and doing all your little tomato plant, things, planting those avocado seeds. And then it's just incredible how it continues to support me in my business. Like, now I'm at a level where I'm onboarding with 2 big US food distributors, and they actually have, I didn't get an in because of my diverse certification, but they have extra supports in place. If you're a diverse supplier, it's fantastic. So it like continues to support in ways that I didn't even know at the start of my journey. But it's been just the right support along the way. So yeah, I definitely echo, as soon as you can, as soon as you can afford it. I wish I knew about it earlier, but it happened when it happened, and I couldn't be happier.
And Kailey, you just real quick brought up a thing. So certifications with certain companies, if you are certified, they will change your net payment terms. So literally there's some out there that are, net 60. I hate net 90, but they still they exist. But if you are certified diverse, they're like, oh, and then they take you to like net 30. I had one that went from net 60 to, I think, 10 days. And I was like, this is fantastic. So that, if anybody, small business owners, cash flow is king, right? So that's absolutely, that is worth its weight in gold right there.
Totally. Or like programs where, normally you'd have to pay whatever slotting fee, listing fee at a retailer, and they're like, we waive that for your dive. And you're like, great, that's fantastic. Just little things, like not little things. Those are large things for us business owners. Yeah, good point.
I think that one of the wonderful things about this conversation is allowing, there's just such a positivity around it. And I often hear about the barriers, or people are just unsure and they don't know where to go. And so I think for anyone who's working client facing on this call today, can see that there are places to send the clients that you work with. And maybe if you're not feeling like you're the person that they need, you don't reflect back what they're experiences, or you're just unsure of where they should go next, that there are resources out there. So that and GLCC and the CGLCC. And it's funny, the acronyms, the words, letters, super words, soup Logan. We, if you work at all in women's enterprise, everything starts with a W, and it's a little bit maddening. And some of them are the same, but they're just, you have to know they're moving a C, not a K when we give your acronym. But anyway, the point is that there are people out there, and inspiring people who are successful in business, that can be a resource for you, to show you sort of the positive side. And it's not all barriers, and it's not all brick walls, right? There are ways through things. And I'm really excited to hear about all of the mentorship, which leads us into sort of our mentorship conversation a little bit. And network building. And so obviously, Sabrina, there's a network building component built into your programming. And I would just love if you could talk a little bit about some of the ways that you've seen that impact entrepreneurs, some of the ways that has helped you. Because I think one thing we always hear about networking is it's the number one thing for entrepreneurs. You've got to network, you've got to build your network. If you're exporting, build your export network. And that sounds amazing. But then you're like, okay, I'm going to do it. How would I possibly start that? So what are some of the ways where, when we're starting looking forward into export, starting that networking journey?
That's a great question. I think Dr. Sarah just gave some really good examples about like showing up to, and Logan too, of showing up to these virtual programs, participating in the chat, listening to what people say. There's such access right now from a virtual perspective. I don't think that's going away. And so I would say, to the extent that you can take advantage of every opportunity that makes sense for you and your company, do that. From an in-person perspective, and we're moving more in that direction, our colleagues at CGLCC, they always come to our conferences and events. They oftentimes bring a contingent of suppliers and stakeholders with them. Engage with your Canadian certifying body. Understand, like Kailey has, how you can then translate that to an export relationship, and quite frankly, just show up. I'll use an example of what Logan's talking about with the avocados versus tomatoes. I love gardening, so let's go with this metaphor for the rest of our conversation today. But we had a supplier. Well, actually, we had an individual who was affiliated with their local chamber of commerce in Vienna, Austria. And they started coming to our events here stateside in the US. And at our National Dinner Awards Gala, met the procurement leader from Accenture, Nidra Dixon, who happens to be on our board of directors at NGLCC. And if anyone knows Nidra, Nidra loves her shoes. And so he's like, oh my God, I love your shoes. They're fabulous. Bonded over that, connected on LinkedIn, Facebook, stayed in touch every now and again, liked, comment, shared, whatever. The typical social media relationship. See you next year at the NGLCC event, kept that relationship alive, networked. Oh, it's so great to see you. Awesome, awesome. The next year he had launched his company, and Nidra found out about it. We held our NGLCC Global UK EU Summit that year. Nidra was there, the supplier was there. He had brought samples of his product. Nidra loved it, and she bought like 3,000 of his product for Accenture. And that was the biggest contract that he had. But that's an example of taking something that was not even a relationship that was intended to be a contracting relationship and just fostering that connection. And then it ultimately led to big business and then expanded growth, because now he had a track record of working with a huge company like Accenture. And so that is definitely an example of planting the avocado seed and watching the tree grow. But also remembering that people do business with people they like, right? And so when people come to our matchmaking programs at NGLCC or our conferences and they network, and it's like, I came to your conference and I didn't get a contract. It's like, well, first of all, what are you doing to set yourself apart? Second of all, procurement processes, if you're just looking at a corporate contract, That takes a lot of time. Do they have the space in their supply chain? When is that opportunity going to open up for your industry in their supply chain? So build that relationship. And also remember that supplier diversity professionals are not siloed to their individual companies, right? When Nidra talked about the amazing experience she had with the supplier, then she told her colleagues at EY and at Johnson & Johnson and at Viacom, and then this supplier started to expand his business. And so remember too, that if you sour the opportunity for yourself with one person, that might pollinate across the network. And it could also mean not so great things for other diverse suppliers as well. Like, oh, I had this really bad experience with an LGBTQ supplier. I don't really want to work with LGBTQ suppliers in our supply chain anymore. So being patient in the process, but really taking advantage of showing up and building relationships is so important. Like, I hate networking. I don't like the culture of networking. It's not something I enjoy doing, but I enjoy having connections with people and I enjoy meeting people. And so that's how I approach it in my personal mind. So I would just approach certification and the opportunities that it has with the first and foremost goal of building relationships that you know will ultimately end up in that beautiful blossomed avocado tree, and we'll all have guacamole around a table with some awesome tacos together.
I do really want nachos. I'm just saying that I'm going to need to make some today. So I think something you touched on there, Sabrina, is maybe we all need to collectively come up with a new term that's not networking, because relationship building is so fundamental to so many entrepreneurs and so many of us just generally, in how we're building networks and how we're thinking about it. But I do think there's a bit of a like, ooh, networking feels like businessman, like I need to get my card out. I don't know, there's a block on it for me personally. So I wonder if that's just reframing the term almost into something like slightly different than networking. Sounds big and scary, but this is networking right now, and this isn't scary. This is a conversation and a building of a relationship.
Yeah, I would say yes. A lot of people do have that connotation around networking. I'm very much an extrovert, so I'm like, yeah, networking, that's my jam, but I'm a rare bird. So I would say it's connecting. So it's finding ways to connect, particularly at the NGLCC event in November. It was the first one back for me, and I think for most people that were there. And I had said, but prior to that, I had said out loud, like, we learned a lot of things. We've all gone through, still going through, a collective trauma of things that happened because of the pandemic and the shutdown and everything. And so I wondered aloud and to friends, like, what is it going to be like? I don't really have capacity for small talk. I'm not sure what this is going to be like going back to a networking event. It was extraordinarily different in all the best ways. I had so many deep conversations about, it ran the gamut. There was a lot of conversation about, hey, I want to learn more about transgender people. Can I ask you questions? Is that okay? And I was like, yes, I'm explicitly telling you, yes, let's go ahead. And we ended up doing a, hour and a half long deep dive. I had other conversations about intersectionality and what it means to, what were my thoughts on Black Lives Matter, Black trans women, and just like Black and brown people, and how that we can all be intersectional allies better for each other. Like, what does that mean to be an ally? So many different conversations. One was about disability and what does that mean, and how do you move through the world? Because this one conversation was about she was born, one hand didn't look like the other, but to her there was no difference, and so we ended up having a very in-depth conversation. So my point is, it's about connection, right? None of those conversations were about, hey, I want to sell you a pen with your logo on it, and what can we do? It was about connecting and what were they interested in, and having a conversation. So you can have, when it comes to connection, there's like Sabrina loves gardening. She could talk about gardening and whatnot. Like, there's different things. Kailey could talk about, I'm sure, all sorts of great snacks and whatever that maybe she doesn't even sell, but is just interested in, something like that. So you can find commonality and have connection in many different ways, and whatever that looks like to you. Be authentic to yourself and whatever you're comfortable with. So, I kind of started that off with a conversation about being trans. Not everybody has wherewithal, and a lot of people don't want to answer questions if you are trans. But the point is, find something that you want to talk about or are interested in talking about, and that genuine joy and and your passion for it will come through, and that creates connection, and that is memorable way more than having a perfect pitch. I mean, you should also have a pitch, but my point is it's going to be more memorable to have that connection than anything else.
Dr. Sarah, I wonder if, because you have worked with Canadian clients, if you have a perspective on that networking side across the border, since we are sort of, the purpose of having Americans in this conversation is to just show like how similar we are, and the connections aren't scary to make that leap over this invisible border that we can just walk right over. And so having a little experience on both sides, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. So I will say that, to just add to what Logan said about the conference. So I was at the conference in November, but I was a virtual participant, right? And so that, even if you can't go to the in-person thing, even if there's a virtual opportunity, right, there was a whole chat function. And so I actually, because I was active in the chat, was able to secure 2 meetings with 2 different supplier diversity professionals and organizations that we had been targeting, but hadn't had that opportunity yet, right? And by being present and by saying in the chat, oh, that was a great point, or, oh, who else is here when the session starts back up, right? It may seem like, I don't know, do I want to say that? Will I look dumb? Like, is that okay? And I just encourage you to be active there. And to then answer your question about my Canadian experience. And so that I will say was through, we're not calling it networking, right? Connection building on LinkedIn. I will say that in the past 2 years, right, in this period of pandemic when everything's been virtual, there's been so many opportunities for entrepreneurs that, as the comment was made earlier about, you might not have the budget to do all the traveling, right, when you're first starting out. The past 2 years of how digital networking and virtual environments have opened up so many possibilities. I guarantee you, if I was to count up all the virtual events that I attended or someone from my team attended over the past 21, in travel expenses alone, probably would have been over $100,000 when you're accounting for plane ticket, hotels, rental car, food, all that kind of stuff, right? And that expense isn't there. What's the expense? Hey, let's make sure everybody has a laptop, everybody has their monthly internet, right? And everyone has access to whatever software they need. And it really, opens up opportunity. And so I will say, the Canadian clients that we serve, in this period of pandemic, we do offer in-person training, but everything's virtual right now, has been through online networking. And so definitely, because the focus of our session, right, sort of on certification and whatnot, network within your certifying groups, but also leverage what you have available. I will tell you that more than half of the inbound clients that mine has received has come from folks finding us on LinkedIn, and we have not spent $1 of ad spend in LinkedIn. Now, that's probably telling you how we should invest some ad spend in LinkedIn. It'll probably, help with that a little bit more. But being present and being active, right, on LinkedIn. Are you posting articles, pictures? Are you putting a couple of sentences up every once in a while? Are you having hashtags? What are you doing? Let your network know. Did you start a cool project? Did you finish a cool project? I will tell you that we always try, and Sabrina's helped us out with this, get video testimonials from our clients that we've worked with, right? If you have a service and you had a great experience with your customer, ask them, just let them know, like, hey, video really helps us. And certainly if you have the budget, you can hire a video firm to fly in with all the gear. But if you don't, get on a Zoom call and record a 5-minute conversation. You now have that content that when someone's asking you, well, have you ever done this kind of work? Right? That's what we get a lot. Well, have you ever done it for this industry? Right? I'm happy. Yes, we have. And here's a testimonial, or here's a Google review, right, from someone in your industry, in your area that we've served. And again, so those are all kinds of virtual, very low income, low cost rather, things that you can do to really set your business up, because it's more, those are some of those tomato marketing things you can do, right? Because then when you want to go after the big contracts, go after the bigger programming, and someone says, hey, have you done this before? You've now got, a whole farm of tomato plants that you can say, yes, we've done it 100 times before with, XYZ. So I think that would sort of be what I would have to say about whether we're working with our Canadian clients or US clients. We actually work with leaders. And this is another exciting 2021 thing that we have. We're working currently with leaders in Mexico, Germany, Australia, Canada, the US, and there's one other one that I know of, right? And that is because of virtual. That's because of being able to invest the time and the effort. Now, we had before the call went live, I think, conversation about time zones. So what does that mean for me, right? And my team is, well, when we're doing training, when we're doing deliverables, we need to be kind of whatever time zone that individual and team is. Might that mean I have to, so I can wake up early? Yes, and I'm willing to do that, right? So it's really about understanding who's your target audience, how are you delivering them value, and maximizing the virtual environment, because we're more alike than we are different, right?
Oh, Sarah. So Kailey, so you're heading into the U.S. market, or you're in the U.S. market, getting going. What do you have a perspective on that cross-border kind of networking?
Yeah, I'll give you the tea on Canadian versus US networking. No, this is a huge generalization. Please, nobody get offended. But Americans, US people tend to be, from my experience, so much more forward, but not in a scary way, in a very refreshing way. I've found. So I'm also an extrovert. I love networking, relationship building, connecting. That's my jam. Happy to connect with anybody after this who has questions or wants to just chat. Totally my thing. But I will say, like, going to something quite general, like a general Toronto business convention, I can find that a little intimidating because I don't know what I have in common with anybody. So it's kind of hard to find, like everyone's saying, networking's not just like, here's my elevator pitch. It's like, do you like to garden? Whatever, but if it's a very general event, it's a little more daunting to kind of get into that. But if it's specific, like queer entrepreneurs, as CGLCC has awesome networking events, or I'm in the food industry. So I've also got like Canadian Women in Food, and I've got my like foodie groups. I think the more, if you're somebody who is intimidated by or nervous about networking, I'd recommend getting a little more niche with the events you pick, because I think it can take that intimidation factor out of it. But yeah, so I do a lot of networking, and I did the NGLCC Tampa conference in 2019. And it was so fun. First of all, I mean, I don't really drink much, but I love dancing. So I'll just dance all night, whatever. But so I'm dancing with people, I'm like connecting, and then somebody, they're more forward. I'm telling you, they're like, by the way, I actually run the food at this big hotel chain. And I'm like, I've been just like being a goof and showing you my stupid moves all night, and you actually could like be a business connection. Bananas. But it's fantastic, because then you've got this like great bond going on with someone, and you're like, we chatting with them like, hey, where are we going tonight? Whatever. And then they like actually could turn into a fruitful business relationship. It's really cool. But yeah, the forward thing is actually really good. It's refreshing, because I find sometimes as Canadians, we're like, da, 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 and also this, and maybe, and then it's like, okay, but like, we can be buds, but like, what's your business? What do you do? Should we actually exchange elevator pitches or cards or whatever? And yeah, so I personally love getting into majority US citizen networking spaces. Like I did a course at the Tuck School of Business at Dartmouth online, a diversity course, and I was the only Canadian, and it was like 40 or 50 folks in the US, and it was so fun. I'm just like, I think put yourself in the spaces with the people that you want to meet with that common interest, and you're going to be great. That's my motivational
Put yourself in the spaces with the people you want to meet is like the greatest line to take away. And it's so, of course, but it is something that I think seems daunting. And I definitely agree with Dr. Sarah about the democratization of going virtual and the acceptance of going virtual.
Yeah.
I think in Canada, we're a very spread out country, and it's a lot to fly from Victoria to St. John's. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of time. It doesn't make sense in most cases. And it also, we've talked about, who from your company goes. Is it always the CEO? And then you're not getting the experience and the diversity of some of the other voices in your group, in your company. One question that we did have was about mentorship. So in our last 10 minutes, I'm going to move from networking into mentorship, if you don't mind. It's a definite favorite topic of mine. And I would love to know, and the question is directly for Keeley, about some of your mentorship experience. I know you have had some through the CGLCC as well, but I would just love to know, specifically with mentorship, some of the benefits coming from the LGBTQ plus perspective specifically. And I think when that idea of putting yourself in the room with the people you want to meet, but also being more niche, and I think that's a really great takeaway for advisors who are working with clients who are feeling overwhelmed to do that sort of, where do I start and where do I reach out? But how has mentorship come into your life, and how has it sort of, resonated with you?
Yeah, I've been very fortunate to have some incredible mentors along my journey. My first one was through Futurepreneur, which was the Canadian Youth Business Foundation. Wonderful business, came from corporate business. And she and I are still connected. We're still buds. It's great. It's like 8 years ago. And then I had somebody in my industry that I contacted myself, and I said, hi, can you mentor me? And he said yes, and that was great. But to the LGBTQ plus mentor, who I also still very close with. We talk multiple times a week. She's fantastic. It's hard for me to put into words, but it's like, when you put on that perfect pair of jeans and they just fit, and you just feel it's just a fit. It's a values fit. It's a life experience fit. It's like she can speak to things in business, like I was saying earlier, like when the businessman in the meeting is like, do you have a rich husband? It's like, I can tell her about these experiences, and she can come back with, hey, I had this similar experiences, and this is how I handled it. And it's so comforting and reassuring, and it goes beyond. It kind of goes beyond business mentorship in a way, but it's like, if you're an entrepreneur, you are your business. So your own mental health and your struggles and the things that you're going through day to day, it's just so powerful to be able to speak to someone who's done it for whatever 30 plus years in the case of my mentor. And it's like, I can't speak highly enough about mentorship. Like, get one if you don't have one. There's tons of mentorship programs, obviously, I'm sure in the States too, but here in Canada, that are, you get paired with a mentor. Like I got mine through the CGLCC, the youth program. But there are, lots of different foundations that you can get mentors with, or just ask. Honestly, I get emailed like once a week from someone in the food industry I'm not a formal mentor to, but like, I'll have a coffee with anybody. If you contact me, I'll do a virtual coffee with you. Like, people are so more willing than you think to give back and to give their time, especially if they're sort of like semi-retired or whatever, like they're kind of finishing their career or whatever. Just give it a shot. If there's someone that inspires you and you think you could learn from and you want to be around, give it a shot. I can't speak more highly about it, but definitely someone from within the LGBTQ plus community, if that's how you identify, is a different kind of special. And I can't really explain it. But if you know, and just take my word for it.
Logan, you're nodding along.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are formal mentorship programs. Participate and sign up for those. I've done a few of those, and those relationships they're great. And you can definitely leverage those. The ones that have meant a lot to me also were ones like say Kailey's what she was talking about was if there's somebody that you admire and is doing well in your industry or not even in your industry, just out in the world, and that you're like, hey, I really like them, and you vibe with their energy, reach out and ask. You know, I usually lead in with at least a few compliments and then ask, hey, can I grab some time with you? You know, and you can make it a weird amount of time, like 14 minutes or 22 minutes or something like that. And it is eye-catching instead of asking for an hour because it seems like a lot for some folks. So you can start in that way and doing mentorship. But it's when you know, right? When you find your tribe and you're vibing with that energy, then go for it. That's who you should be talking with. Again, as I mentioned, living 38 years as a woman, and I started the business as a woman. The whole don't hate me, but this is actually really true. I can't even tell you how much smarter I got after I transitioned and was walking through the world and being viewed as the man that I am, right? It was bizarre, and I still have those moments of like, what the heck is happening? So that is very real. Women, you're not crazy. And then also there's that argument of if you try to argue it with cis men, then like, oh, well, now you're just a crazy woman, right? Not true. That bias exists. So finding a mentor will also help you, especially like women, what have you, somebody that has been on a life journey in that way. They can speak to that and say, hey, no, you're not crazy. Yes, have experienced that. Here's how I dealt with it. And it gives you ideas. You can deal with it, whatever adversity or opportunities and challenges, and maybe they've been there or they've done something that you can go, that sounds interesting, or I like that idea, but then you can expound upon it or make it your own. So that's where the benefit of mentorship comes in, is really leveraging their life experience and or mistakes or wins for that matter. So it's really great to do.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any thoughts on mentorship?
I can a bit. I agree. Mentors are great. You need to have them. I have two that I've had for quite some time now. One I've had, I think almost 10 years, and the other one I've had coming up on 5 years outside of organizations. So definitely have those. And then the programs that the different certification bodies or associations offer, engage those as well, right? Very specific mentorship from whatever that individual's background is, even if it is in a group setting or a one-to-one setting, whatever that may be, advantage of that. I will also say that my firm offers, right, mentorship and leader development services to organizations. And so we have organizations that come to us because of who I am, who our other leadership doctors are. So we have a couple of leadership doctors we bring in on projects as well. And they want someone from whatever it is that we represent to mentor people on their team. So this is something that maybe you lead a team or you lead an organization, right? And maybe you're not the right fit to be the mentor to someone, or maybe someone on your team is looking for a mentor that's in the LGBT space or is in whatever that is. Know that you can come to my firm or, you know, others within the community to find that. So also it's sort of know when to be a mentor to someone, but also know when you can help them by identifying another source that could be a good mentor for them. Because certainly I echo the comments about having the LGBT lived experience as the focus of our conversation today, right? It's important that you are connecting folks so that they're able to grow with whatever best fits their identity.
Awesome. I have nothing else to add on that part, but we're getting to the top of the hour. We're 1 minute away, and this has been such a really great conversation. And I think one thing I'm always trying to think of what would our advisors who work with WEOC be looking for. And I think sometimes it's that, you know, I may be a white woman, a cisgendered woman, and I'm across the table from somebody who's not having the same life experience as me. And I want to bridge that conversation with them to say, like, hey, I may not be your person in this. I can help with all of these other parts of your business, but in this part, you know, there might be somebody else. And so I think it's really important to hear to see that there are so many people out there that are willing to share their voice, share their story, share their experience, and also that there are organizations that you can say, like, I'm an advisor, I want to know where to send this person, I want to know what's out there. I saw Dr. Sarah Skidmore talking on this thing, I'm going to send her a message on LinkedIn to say, like, what were you saying about this? So I think anytime we can bring people together for a conversation, super beneficial. And I think it takes away a little bit of the scariness and also the otherness, not just of different communities, but the otherness of this cross-border that we live on the other side of. And if the pandemic has shown us nothing, it's that we're having a very similar life experience, all of us right now, whether our governments handle things differently or not, but we are still all living through it and surviving through it. And I just thank all of you for coming today. I think that's just I'll end there. I'm very want to be respectful of everyone's time, but I could not thank the four of you enough for giving up this time for us today. And thank everybody on the call for coming. And as always, if you want to just send us, and yes, we are now all going to go have nachos and salsa and guacamole, and we're going to pollinate, we're going to water, and we're going to prune all of our ideas around our business. I have a very gardening, and I'm also looking at no trees or plants or very few living things. So I would love to see an avocado plant. That's a uniquely American idea that's formed, because I don't know that we have a lot of avocado trees, maybe in the West Coast, but we're not, certainly not in Winnipeg where I am. They are not growing, but it gives me hope for summer. Anyway, thank you so much, everyone, for coming, and have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.